So this year is our 12th year doing this award dinner. The first 11 were called the Partnership Award. And last year we decided, in some conversations with the bigwigs and all that, that we were going to change this to the Servant Leader Award and recognize maybe a wider variety of people and people who are doing things outside of the scope of what the partnership was. And you'll hear about that in Sister Jackie's talk and Sister Margaret's talk. So, year 12/year 1 of a new title. As we start, I would just like to ask all of our servants of Mary, just raise your hands if you don't mind. Very good representation. And we have a lot of named sisters with us tonight. If you could raise your hands. And we also have some nurses with us. If you could raise your hands. Okay, so thank you all. I know the sisters, despite being from different orders, they do a lot of work together. They do a lot of great things together around our city, our community, and all that. So it's great to have a presence of all of those orders here celebrating tonight. Let's see. I always have to refer to my notes. Get that. Okay. So my one reminder, my plug, we have a silent auction over here. I noticed a lot of names on there, so we will do, we'll have about 15 minutes afterwards for everybody to go fill out a few more numbers, a few more bids, and all that. So keep track of that. We also have the gift card grab.
There's some left.
There's some left. Okay. So there's a few of those left, and not only do I encourage you to buy those, but look at the list. We put up a list of everybody who donated for the gift card grab, and they were all donations. As you're kicking around with your spouse, your friend, whoever, where should we go for dinner tonight, or where do I need to go pick up my groceries, or whatever, remember some of the names that were on that list. Remember the names of the golf courses, things like that. Everybody who donated from around town, I encourage you to go visit those places and mention that you appreciate them helping us out and all that. I think it just does, it makes it nice for them to know that somebody was at our event and recognize and appreciate what they did for us. So I encourage you to look at that list and then go to those places. At this time, I'm going to ask Sister Carrie Larkin to come up. And she's got about a 45-minute prayer. She's just going to say a few quick hellos and then a prayer, and then we'll eat. And we will start with our head table here, and then we'll just kind of disperse in a line. And there's buffet tables on both sides, so don't be too shy. Sister Carrie.
Good evening, and in the name of the servants of Mary, welcome. I know Sister Mary would love to be here because she was desperate enough to ask me to take her place. I know she wasn't feeling good, so it's up for grabs. Thank you so much for joining us as we recognize two of our Omaha servant leaders, Notre Dame sisters, Sister Rosalee Burke and Stephen Patrick O'Mara, for their work with the Coalition on Human Trafficking. Last year, we redefined, as Tom's mentioned, our focus for this annual event to support the servants of Mary by using a more gospel-centered approach. We recognize that many people are leaders in the Omaha area. We, however, wish to focus on those whose leadership style model that of Jesus. The modern concept of servant leadership was articulated by Robert Greenleaf in his 1970 essay, The Servant as Leader. Since that time, he and many others have developed this further into a philosophy of leadership and management. Greenleaf describes the concept in this way, and I quote, "The servant leader is servant first. It begins with the natural feeling that one wants to serve first. Then conscious choice brings one to aspire to lead. The servant leader makes sure that other people's highest priority needs are being served. The best test, and difficult to administer, is, do those who serve grow as persons? Do they, while being served, become healthier, wiser, freer, more autonomous, more likely themselves to become servants? And what is the effect on the least privileged in our society? Will they benefit, or at least not be further deprived? End of quote. As Christian leaders, we ask, how would Jesus lead? His answer is consistent. If anyone wants to be first, he must be last and the servant of all. I am among you as one who serves. And again, Jesus states, the greatest among you must become like the youngest, and the leader like one who serves. In John 13, Jesus washed the disciples' feet and says, I have set you an example that you should do as I have done for you. If we are to lead as Jesus led, we must become servant leaders. Again, thank you for joining us tonight. We are always grateful for your presence with us and your support for all the work that we do. And so let us say our prayer. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Loving Creator, we are grateful for all of those who are with us this evening, for those who have dedicated their lives for the betterment of others. We ask you especially to bless Sister Rosalee and Stephen Patrick O'Mara in all that they do.
I also want to thank Sharon Dooley and her staff here at DC Center. They are fantastic to work with. Pretty much anything something crosses your mind that you need last minute, you always make sure it works out for you. So if you're ever planning an event, I certainly would recommend you use the DC Center. Maybe they'll tell Sharon I gave that plug. I mentioned it before, but I want to thank everybody who donated to for the gift card grab and all of our auction items out there. So without everybody doing that, the fundraiser portion of this night isn't quite a fundraiser. So we really appreciate everybody who does that type of thing for us. It helps us really make this night even more successful than it would be without it. So again, patronize those places, go to the Mavericks games, go to the Blue Jay games, yell and scream, do everything you have to do, but go support. Okay, so at this time, Sister Jackie Ryan, in place of Sister Mary, she's going to come up and she's got, how long is yours? 45, 50 minutes? Very good. So Sister Jackie's going to come up and she's going to make a few comments about the coalition, and then she will introduce Sister Margaret. Sister Margaret Stratman is going to introduce our honorees and present the awards. So Sister Jackie.
This really is a 45-minute piece. The people who are part of the coalition are one of the most amazing groups of people. So it's going to take some time to talk about the beginnings, the history, the goals, and some of their activities. And I think it's very important that we take time to do that this evening. The Notre Dame, Mercy, and Servite Sisters began the Omaha Coalition on Human Trafficking in 2013. The coalition is now a nonprofit 501c3 organization. It is governed by a board of directors, and its chairperson currently is attorney Stephen Patrick O'Meara. The coalition has garnered support from many different sources, including the Nebraska Human Trafficking Task Force, the Douglas County Sheriff's Office, the Omaha Archdiocese, Catholic Charities, Lutheran Family Services, Project Harmony, the Women's Fund, America Mothers Inc., and CHI Health. There are 3 R's that sum up the coalition's mission. The coalition's goal is to help the public realize human trafficking is happening right here. Recognize the signs of sex trafficking and respond safely and appropriately. A press conference was held in January of 2016 to make the coalition's campaign more visible to the public. It was well attended by coalition members, the mayor, law enforcement agencies, the Hospitality Association, service agencies, and interested citizens. Media coverage was good, and the public awareness of human trafficking was raised. The coalition is action-oriented. A significant activity is the Hotel Motel Project, which provides ongoing training through volunteers to educate hotel motel staff on how to recognize the signs of sex trafficking within their facilities and how to respond to these situations. The coalition is collaborating with Magdalene Omaha to provide a facility and needed services for victims within the local area. Legislative bills related to human trafficking in the Nebraska unicameral are closely followed and pursued. Collaborating and establishing partnerships with other similar coalitions within our region are essential to fighting this pervasive problem. The coalition is very attentive to encouraging cultural change as well, for without this, human trafficking will not be eliminated. Coalition members are very committed to helping to end the scourge of human trafficking, especially in the metro area. Efforts are ongoing to further educate the public about the issue, collaborate with other like-minded groups, find ways to decrease the demand for sex trafficking through education and stiffer penalties, and increase effective services available to victims. It is our hope that our efforts will bring cultural change and new movement toward greater respect for the dignity of each human person. So that's a little snapshot of the coalition and all of the good. And now at this time, I would like to introduce Sister Margaret Stratman. Sister Margaret is a current coalition board member and has been on the coalition since its very beginning. Sister Margaret will introduce our 2 honorees.
Well, this evening it really is with great pleasure that the servants of Mary have the opportunity to honor 2 individuals who really are most deserving of the title servant leaders. Notre Dame sister Rosalee Burke and Stephen Patrick O'Meara, good Irishmen, have been most instrumental and just really key figures in the establishment of the coalition. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what they do, and Jackie alluded to some of it, of course, because those are the activities of the coalition. But Sister Rosalee Burke was the initial chair of the coalition. And I think she knew right from the get-go that the coalition needed to be a coalition, truly, of persons from the churches, law enforcement, social services, child advocacy centers, healthcare, hospitality industry, women's groups, and then other relevant groups. With a passion, she has spent over these years countless hours inviting individuals and groups to join the coalition, educating about trafficking with any group that was interested enough to listen, contacting media about the issue, raising local awareness of trafficking at Omaha events, such as the College World Series and Berkshire Hathaway, etc., following related legislation in the unicameral, researching best practices for victim services, pursuing grants and doing fundraising, and networking with other groups who are also fighting trafficking. And then most recently, an effort of hers was to begin the process of establishing the coalition as a nonprofit group, assuring its growth and its future. And so, Sister Rosalee, thank you. You have done a lot. Attorney Stephen Patrick O'Mara this last June took over the reins from Sister Rosalee as chair of the coalition. His passion for the issue of human trafficking, ending human trafficking, runs deep. Along with the Child Exploitation Task Force and the FBI, he has been involved in the prosecution of several, probably all, maybe not all, but several of the cases in Omaha. Firsthand from victims, he knows the lifelong damage that is done to them through trafficking. He served as the Nebraska Assistant Attorney General on Human Trafficking and developed the 5-year plan to fight trafficking that is now being implemented in the state. He helped develop the coalition's hotel-motel project to train staff on signs of trafficking and how to respond effectively and safely. I don't know if you know, but 75 to 80% of sex trafficking occurs in hotels and motels. So this is a very important project. And he is a consummate collaborator, always collaborating with somebody, and has reached out to work with many other coalitions in Nebraska, Iowa, and beyond. Besides the educational presentations that he does with anybody who will listen, he also offers presentations on the essential need for cultural change if we are ever to make a dent in human trafficking. So thank you, Stephen Patrick O'Mara, for all the energy that you have put into this most important project. So with deep gratitude for your efforts, the Servants of Mary present our 2017 Servant Leadership Award to Sister Rosalee Burke and Stephen Patrick O'Mara.
We had, with the group who was working with teaching hotels and motels, we had a gal who was going to go out and go to this one hotel. And now it was a motel. But anyway, she had called him and called him and called him. And usually we say if you call 3 times, you quit. Well, she called about 10 times. And the guy finally got so aggravated that he said, come out and give it, and then I'll be done with it. So anyway, she went out, and he was there, and had all the staff. And they were about halfway through giving the presentation, and he interrupted and said, now,
you people out there, you're not seeing any of these things. It's not happening here. And it was real quiet, and then someone said, well, yes, it is. And they started telling the cases where they knew it was happening, but some of them knew these things were happening, but they didn't know what it was. So anyway, they had a very good session, and the people who worked there learned more about what was happening, and so the two of them who gave it went out afterwards, and were standing in the parking lot talking about it, and all of a sudden, the owner came out with one of the people and said, we think we have a case of it right now in room such and such. So they called the police and went through the whole ordeal. But, you know, people can know things are happening but not know what to do. And so it's wonderful. And they have gone to, I think, around 100 places. So that's a wonderful thing that we can be excited about that's happening in the area. I would just like to say that I said no to my provincial, who happened to be Sister Celeste at the time, twice for starting this, and I thought, oh no, I don't want to do that. About the third time I thought, I guess I better do it. So anyway, we got the sisters together and we met. And none of us really knew much about it. And it was very eye-opening to learn more about it and to find out how much it was happening in the area. But when I was asked to work on that, I thought, why should I work on that? It's not happening here. And it is happening in Omaha very, very much. And there are a lot more people now from when we started about 5 years ago who are actively getting involved in doing something about it, which is wonderful. So anyway, it's been delightful. It has been wonderful working with the sisters and also working with the larger group. And I would just like to have everybody who is on the committee or the commission or the subcommittees, would you stand up? We've got a number of you here. Come on. That you do all the time, and thank you for the honor.
So I'll start by saying my name is Stephen Patrick O'Mara, and the reason I say that is going around the room, there are an awful lot of people that knew me as Heather's dad. First of all, thank you very much to the Servants of Mary for this award. It really is extremely meaningful to me, and I did not realize how you should take a look at the awards themselves. They are beautiful, but they're based on the garden. And Sister Margaret would tell you that I know I am in a holy place when I am there, and I like going there. I would say the same with Notre Dame, and I just haven't been with Mercy much, but Notre Dame, it's the same thing, and that's really what it's about. So, thank you very much. I got in the mood for coming here tonight when I looked at my work area now, because I'm retired, so I don't have an office. And one of my biggest awards sits right there next to my desk, and it was given to me by some people I worked with on the Omaha Child Exploitation Task Force. And I wish I had the time to tell you about that, because I still get kind of choked up from dealing with the victims, the survivors of sex trafficking. I've been doing this work for about 10 years. And this award sits proudly there, but it put me in the right mood to come here tonight. It says, you are one in a million. And I will never forget that. There are so many people, even in this room, but beyond it, that would be deserving of this award for the work they do. No one of us make the difference. All of us make the difference. So Definitely. I got back from a project we're doing in Des Moines last night about midnight with Sister Celeste and Kathy Kemmler. Tim Dunning, who Tim and I go back a long ways together, been through quite a few different projects, but the room is just full of people, and there are many beyond that that are beginning to make a difference. And I wasn't going to do this tonight, but Sister did it, so I'm just going to throw you a couple of numbers real quickly. When I was with the Omaha Child Exploitation Task Force, we averaged encountering about 20 victims a month. Okay, yeah, that's a wow. If you look at the current valid statistical data for people that are at high to moderate risk for being victimized in sex trafficking in Omaha in any given 6-month period, 840 people. We aren't even getting the tip of the iceberg. That's just something to think about, okay? So, first of all, thank you very much to the sisters. This is doubly important to me, and the sisters know this. I am a product of 8 years of Catholic grade school, 4 years of Catholic high school, 3 years of Catholic college, and 3 years of Catholic law school, okay? I did a presentation at Creighton St. John's not too long ago, and the Jesuits were really telling everybody up front how I had embraced my Jesuit roots. And I stood up and thanked the Jesuits because they have been very important in my life, but reminded them that they just finished what the sisters started. I think I had to go to confession. But I'm serious when I say that. Plus, I just feel a little lighter on my feet when I'm with the sisters because that is where I began. And it was important because it was there that I learned that God is my Father. And that's carried me throughout. I'd also like to quickly acknowledge my wife, Valerie. Valerie has made a house into a home for 46 plus years. She's kind of the consummate mother, right, Heather? Don't say that. We have 4 children and 11 grandchildren, and Val she's their mother and their grandmother, and she still has essentially daily contact with all 4 of her children, including the one that lives in Des Moines. So and seated next to my wife, Valerie, is my oldest child, Heather. Heather is here because she drew the short straw and had to represent her siblings. Heather is a very accomplished wife and mother, teacher in a parochial school. She just does so much, and I'm proud of all and love all of my children, but I really am very proud of Heather. And I'm proud to bear the title, Heather's Dad. Okay, I'll move this along real quickly. And this is, people that know me know this is really hard for me to do. Okay. So, I already told you that, people have actually been asking me quite a bit lately, I've done this for like 45 years. How can you do this so long? I've spent a lot of my life living in a very dark and cold world. Most of us don't live in that world, but I've, for some reason, just encountered terrible casework all through my career, topped off by the last 10 years with human trafficking. And I'm just going to give you a couple of reasons. Number one, and I owe this a lot to my wife, I do have a penchant for seeing the dark side of the world because that's my job. I've embraced that. It's what I am called to do. My wife would tell you I call her Pollyanna at times because she always reminds me to look at the good in the world too. And if I did not look at the good in the world, I could not do what I do. And so I thank everybody that's here tonight for being part of that good in the world. Please continue because we need much more of it. The next thing is, I learned in high school, I was really very fortunate. I went to parochial high school. I learned in high school that Scripture really holds the answers to most of the problems of the world. I really learned that in a pragmatic sense. And that has been a lesson that has carried throughout my life. And so I apply that. I learned it in trade, and are there any judgments in the room? From a lay theology or philosophy instructor whose name happened to be Dr. Apostle. My life is like this. It really is his name, Robert C. Apostle. I learned that philosophy is not an academic subject. Philosophy really is how I live my life. Okay? And I learned, I was not going to go to law school. I was pre-health science. And that's what my family does, and that's what I was going to do. But I ended up in law school. And I learned that with a law degree, I could really help people. We live in an ordered, litigious society. I also have a social work background, and I am a real boon, no, actually I'm a bane, to social workers because I remind them theory is great, but you have to have results if you really want to help people. And being a lawyer has really helped me to be able to do that, to really help people. I'll share one quick example with you. And we don't encourage this at all, but in 2011 we did a case with a person who was actually co-opted out of a psychiatric facility in Pennsylvania and was terribly, terribly treated after that. She was a single mother. She was taken all around 2/3 of the United States and forced into commercial sex acts. No one had really helped her in her life. To this day, she has contact with about 3 or 4 of us that worked on the task force. And she calls me Grandpa. And, you know, really in a sense, next to being Heather's dad and one in a million, that may be the best title that I've ever had. Because we reached her. We gave her hope. She knew that somebody cared. That's what we have to do. And Sister was right. I really push enculturation. I've been doing this for 45 years, primarily as a prosecutor. I actually got a defense attorney a little bit, but as a prosecutor most of the time. And I will tell you, we cannot prosecute and treat our way out of this. We have to have prosecution, we have to have treatment, but we cannot prosecute and treat our way out of this and many of the other social evils. We have to have cultural change. And I will tell you that the basis of that, and there's a whole bunch of scriptural quotes that I use when I do a faith grade presentation, but the one that has really kept me doing this for this long is Matthew 19:26. For God, all things are possible. I really believe that. I have experienced miracles in my life, both personally and professionally. And I know that if I conform my heart and will and actions to the heart and will of God, I can be a part of making a difference to change this world so that the family I love and the victims, particularly the vulnerable ones that I want to help, can have a better world to live in. But it takes all of us. Thank you very much.
So I want to say congratulations again to both of you. And thank you for being with us. Thank you to all of your friends and family for being with us. Sister Jackie, Sister Carrie, thank you for stepping in for Sister Mary. I appreciate it. Sister Val, Sister Linda, thanks for selling the cards. There are 4 envelopes left back there. We don't want to take those back. So somebody go over there and get them. We have about, we'll call it 15 minutes left in our silent auction. We have the room until whatever, midnight, if we want to stay that long. So now that the program is complete, please do not feel like you need to get up and bolt out the door. Please stick around, converse, tell stories. If you want to talk small world, Dr. Apostle is my neighbor. Dave Carl right here is my neighbor. We grew up a block away from each other. You went to prom with my cousin. There's a lot of stories I went here. So, anyway, thank you all again for coming. The night can last as long as you would like for it to last. Thank you for coming, and we'll see you soon and next year. Thank you.